Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be talking about efficiency spending with your raid currency. We're going to look at Mark 1, 2, and 3, and kind of showing you how by spending this currency properly, it can actually allow you to turn it into resources that otherwise you wouldn't think about, and how combining your raid currency with your regular energy or your fleet energy, that you can kind of compound and make sure that you're going to get the most out of everything in this game. Raid currency, again, going back to allowing us to purchase what we want out of this raid store rather than just randomly dropping gear, there are like right and wrong decisions now, where before it was a lot easier. Now there are certain times where there's a right and wrong decision to how to spend this. So let's go ahead and thank our channel members for their continued support. If you're ever interested, that link is down below, along with a link to Discord server. Go check it out. Thank you guys again for keeping the faith, for believing in me. You guys are just, I'm so overwhelmed sometimes with the, positivity that I get out of you guys. I make this content, I enjoy it, but you guys are the ones that make it enjoyable. So thank you again. Let's get in here. Let's talk about our raid currencies. So yeah, we're going to go through our Mark 1, Mark 2, and our Mark 3 raid currency. Now, let's start with Mark 1, and here's what I want to say. For a very long time, your answer is just going to be spending on what you need here. That it's going to be a while for you to end up looking like I do, where you just have so much of this stuff, right? And you want to spread the love around, right? You want to make sure everybody's getting a little bit of action, make sure everything's going on. Like, you don't want to ignore credits because then you run out. But you don't want to buy credits every single time and then not have any of your carbonis or other resources, right? Spread it around, make sure we're building up everything. Now, at first, it's just going to be, hey, I need 50 carbonis, I got to get there, right? And then you'll start to be able to build stuff. Like, as you get through other events, this gear kind of compounds on itself, and then we can focus other places. One thing to note here that's actually a very good purchase is the mod slicing materials. Some of the mod materials here are really important to buy, because that will save you from having to farm the nodes for them. The reason the mod resources are here is back in the day, when you had the Sith raid, right, if we go to the guild raids, back in the day with the Sith raid, they've changed it now to where you just kind of get these, the rewards as it is. But back in the day, you actually got mod slicing materials out of this raid. So they've kind of kept it consistent with what it used to be, right? So you can still purchase those if you're, again, and that's kind of something that if you're like, I don't need those, then fine. But like, it's something I see a lot of value in for Mark 1 currency is buying that stuff. Now, Mark 2 currency. This is where things start to get a little bit complex, because yes, initially you're just going to buy what you need. But as you start to get a little bit further, you can be really smart with this. And I'm going to show you how. So we're going to flip over to the screen capture here, and I've got my relic farming guide, which I will make sure I link in the video description. So this is, again, linked. I've done this video so many times. I've shared this a lot. So the big thing here to understand is that there's certain pieces on fleet nodes that are available for this Mark II raid currency. There's certain pieces that have really good salvage rates. That, like Fleet 3C and 2E, just as examples, have the Gear 13 gear and pieces to turn into carbonite circuit boards. And even if you're only getting, if you get like 40 salvage a day, which sounds like a lot, but if you're doing a bunch of refreshes for these, it's not that hard to get there at all. That's 1,200 carbonite circuit boards a year on top of all the gear that you're earning there. So you can increase your carbonite circuit board inventory a lot by farming these. And you're wondering, why am I bringing that up if I'm talking here? Well, that's because you can purchase those two things with your, like this piece here, right? That was one of the pieces I mentioned. You can purchase this with Mark II raid currency. But that doesn't make any sense if you can farm it and build up your inventory of carbonite circuit boards at the same time. Comparative to a piece like this Armatech thing. And let me pull it up here. I gotta remember, I think it's here on Sharut. Right? So if I go find this piece, right? It's only got this piece on here, which isn't really that valuable to scrap. So a much better decision is buy this stuff with Mark II, because I'm not benefiting from farming it like I am when I'm farming something like this, where I'm also benefiting my carbonite circuit board piece. Again, initially, you're probably just going to spend this stuff on what you need it. But as your roster grows, as you earn resources in other areas, you're going to be able to start to farm the stuff you need in fleets and then buy everything else out of here. And it does work out that way. Like, you can spread this around. It does really work out. You'll see it. Again, it may take you some, you know, like, this was years of progress for me, right? This was years of progress. You know, it'll eventually happen. And again, if you get to that point where you're starting to see a lot of inventory build up, just spread it around. Maybe check to see, is there a certain piece that you're going to need a lot of, and hoard up that, you know. But I do think that by checking into that fleet node and looking and saying, hey, you know what? If I farm these pieces instead of buying them here, I can buy, you know, the other pieces I need, and then I'm, you know, moving through the game a lot faster. I'll be able to, you know, improve my account much more quickly. So look at those pieces that you don't want to have to farm. Same situation with stuff like this and this, where those are on, like, regular energy here, just to show you. So, like, you can see here, regular energy. Well, I'm not going to spend regular energy on this when I need Kyrotech, so I'd rather purchase them with my Mark II. And again, there's other places, but just particularly with raid currency, it's still not a bad decision to buy those. Some people will say, no way, only get one, and that can be a very good strategy as well. But as you get later in the game, you'll notice you don't get nearly as much get one, and you've got to kind of more heavily rely on that Mark II raid currency to get some of that stuff. So just bear that in mind as well. That's another really good way to spend it. Mark III. Oh, and with Mark II, I do want to say this. I did want to mention this. Don't buy any of the rhodium heat sinks, chromium transistors, bronzium wiring, carbonate circuit boards. No relic resources with your Mark II. There's other places to get them, right? There's other places. Same situation with the Kyrotechs and the weekly shipments. Ignore these. This is terrible. There's much better ways. Mark 1 with Omegas, this is a good place. I did want to mention the weekly shipments. Omegas here for Mark 1 raid currency is a steal, especially if you need them. 5 extra Omegas a week is solid. If you're short on them, I highly recommend buying this. That's a very good price. Mark 3. This is probably the one resource that I would say the vast majority of the player base struggles with, because they get blinded by the cool stuff. The Gerda keypads, the arrows, the impulse detectors. All of these things can be very good purchases with this currency, but only if you need it, right? If you are, like, if you're a player who has no need for Relic 9 resources, I wouldn't really be spending too much currency here, because it's just sitting, like, that's currency that could be transformed into Zimbital cards or Electrum conductors that has a far better benefit to your account. So early on, I'd only focus on what you need. Hey, I need arrow magnifiers and impulse detectors to get Executor. Okay, I'm going to go there. Hey, I need, you know, Zimbital cards, Electrum conductors. I'm going to go here. Like, you really want to focus on these pieces here. I would say the Relic 9s only when you're going after a farm that requires them. And that's the only time you do it. Otherwise, do not buy the Relic 9 resources. It's not that much of a benefit comparative to the other stuff, right? As your account grows, like mine has, we can start to make some investment decisions like this, where we're going to start to hoard a little bit of that because, you know, I've got 590 Electrum conductors. I'm not in danger of running out. But you at least want to be prepared for that when it does happen, right? That is, you know, make sure we are being prepared for those things. And then there also is Zetas up here. If you are short on Zetas, this is a very good deal. I don't want you to think it isn't. It looks like it's very expensive. It's more expensive to get Zetas than it is Gerda keypads. But if you're bottlenecked by Zetas, remember, there's not a lot of other ways to get Zetas. We can't rush Zetas like we can do other things. Like, you can't go in, you know, you go to your account here, and if I want to get Zetas, right, I can get fleets, I can get guild store. Otherwise, it's all events or packs, right? There's nothing else I can do to get Zetas. But if I go back here and I want to get some Gerda keypads, right? Oh, I guess I can't. Let's go to, who's Relic 8, Lord Vader, Gerda keypads. If I want to get these, right, I've got the guild store, right? But I also have crystal shipments. So I can spend my bonus crystals directly in crystal shipments, not hoping that there's a pack available. I can get these with crystal shipments, like weekly shipments. These are always here. That's not the case for Zetas. So that is one thing that I will say with that Mark III raid currency, is that if you are really short on Zetas, I don't hate buying these. I think that can be very smart. You can get even just 2 extra Zetas a week. If you're in the raid here and your guild reaches the, let's call it the 130 here, you get 4,000 currency, right? At 130 million or 90, you get 3,000. So even if you spent the vast majority of your resources buying Zetas every week, 2 extra Zetas a week is the equivalent of an extra day of the Zeta challenge, right? You get 2 Zetas out of this challenge here. If you got an extra day out of that, that's what you're doing with the raid. So just file that for thought that that's actually a pretty solid deal because we can't really rush Zetas that much. I think that is a good purchase of your Mark III currency. Now, there are a couple of ways to spend this currency that are, I would say, big brain plays, that there's some things we can do that really can help you build out other resources. So if you're in a position like myself where you have a lot of this gear, you don't really need to be purchasing it because you've already equipped a lot of it, you're not in danger of running out anytime soon. There's a piece here that is extremely valuable to buy that benefits you in a massive way, and that is these Mark III holo projectors. Now, I don't have these available for Mark I raid currency at the moment, but they are available, and you can get a lot of them, and they're pretty cheap, too. It's not too expensive to purchase those Mark IIIs. You purchase those, you come to the scavenger, and if you craft them here, right, even if you just did this, you come in and craft, and let's say I'm going to craft, it takes 20 pieces to craft this, right? So if I come in here and I decide, you know what, I'm going to craft, I don't know, 4 of them, right? I bought 80 projectors. I crafted 4 of them. That is a whole Erodium heat sink, right? That's 20 of them. That's what you would need to go from Relic 4 to Relic 5. That is a steal, right? I spend a lot of my Mark I currency on these Erodium heat sinks, on the Mark III discs to get Erodium heat sinks. So now what you're able to do is you're trading this currency, right? You can use this stuff to basically purchase this. So now your Mark II currency, you don't need to purchase these because you're getting it from, down here. And now you have more leeway to utilize your Mark II currency for these other things. And as I explained earlier, because we're going to use our regular energy to go after Kyrotex, you don't need bronzium wiring. Because you're using your, you think through the piece here, this piece here can get you carbonite circuit boards, so now you don't need this. And chromium transistors, again, in the Relic Farming Guide, if I go over there, and we move to our chromium transistors, you can literally just buy this piece out of the guild store and get more than you'll ever need. It's obscene, right? That piece with regular guild currency can just do everything. So you never need to use your Mark II currency if you're utilizing all the rest of the resources properly. You never need to use Mark II for anything other than that relic gear. Now, with this relic gear, what I will say is that there is a way that this can turn into relic resources. If you have enough of this stuff and you're like, yeah, I'm in good shape. If you go to your scavenger and we go to, your electrum conductors, right? We can do this, right? Again, I can go find this piece and it's, come on, pull up thing. Of course, it's going to take forever here. There we go. Yeah, so I can, buy this. All right, that's fine. I can do that. And it's a pretty solid rate of return. You can get a good amount of these things. Zimbital cards, right? You can also buy these things for that, currency, and 50 of those turn into a Zimbital card. And a lot of people say, oh, that's really good. But let me just show you something. What you need to keep in mind with Zimbital cards is that you need, 50 of these to go from Relic 6 to Relic 9. You need 50 of them total to go from Relic 6 to Relic 9, which is 250 salvage pieces. Just to put that into perspective, to go to Relic 9, you only need 20 Gerda keypads, which is also 250 of those salvage pieces. So the conversion rate for Gerda keypads to Zimbital cards from a Relic 9 perspective is the same. So don't think, I don't want you to get confused and think that you're better off buying these to turn them into Zimbital cards. Sure, you can get to Relic 7 and that can be smart, but don't think that it's better to do that for the Relic 9s. It's the same conversion either way, right? That it's still that conversion rate, because of the amount of Zimbital cards you need compared to Gerda keypads, it's the same. Now, if we get a Relic 10, that may change, but at the current state right now, buying these to turn them into Zimbital cards, in the grand scheme of things, is no different than buying them to turn them into Gerda keypads from an overall account perspective, right? Now, if you're trying to get to Relic 7, I can understand that, but I'm just trying to get you to think big picture here. But the impulse detectors, right? You could say, oh, well, Phil, that's even crazier, right? Yes, it's awful to do these for impulse detectors, right? It is awful. We don't want to do that. It's 400, which is what you would need. You need like 40 of these to get to Relic 9. That's misery, right? That's just so much. So I don't really recommend that as much either, just because of how crazy those are. But the Electrum conductors, these you need what, like 80 of them? So just to show you even more, like the Electrum conductors, not worth it either. So if you were going to purchase gear to turn into your scavengers, it would be the stuff for Zimbital cards or the stuff for Gerda keypads. And that way you're at least buying the least, you're taking the least amount of a hit. Because of these things, and these things just needing so many of them, those are better to use with your, your currency for those, and you could try to use your Mark II currency to offset Zimbital cards and Gerda keypads when your account is ready for that. So, overall, guys, in conclusion, as I've tried to show you, and hopefully you didn't get too lost, by spending your Mark 1, 2, and 3 currencies efficiently, with a little bit of thought in mind of where you're going, you can really increase your stockpile of gear, but also make progress towards everything all at once. You want to avoid this concept. When I took karate for a little bit when I was like in middle school and early high school before I got real serious with running over the winter time. And one of the things our karate instructor would teach us is this thing they called it dead time. And it was that time of, hey, you threw a kick, right? And as you're coming back down from that, or that person threw that punch, and, they're kind of mid-motion, right? They threw the punch, and now that fist is just kind of there until they bring it back and come back for their next action. That period of time there, it's small, is called dead time. And I've kind of turned that into a SWGO phrase, that you want to avoid dead time. You want to avoid that time in the game where you are just waiting for, like, one thing to happen. Like the example you could use is that for Padawan Sabine, Omega, Hu Yang, General Syndulla, yeah, I'm kind of waiting on the signal data and the gear and the Zetas for all of them. So, like, there's a bunch of things keeping me from moving. If all that was keeping me from moving is character shards for one of them, like General Syndulla, I want to avoid that. I want to rush that. I don't want to just sit there needing one particular thing from getting, or, accomplishing a goal. So by spending these resources properly, you avoid that dead time. You avoid that time where, all right, you've got all the Carbanis you need, you've got all of this, but because you weren't spending your Mark II currency right, you're waiting on, 15 of this piece to show up. That's what you want to avoid, that time where you're just waiting for one single thing to move you on. So that's the end of the video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.